Welcome to Tuesday, the 14th day of January, 2025. Your day weather podcast calls for today to be kind of like yesterday. We're going to see a similar situation under that big bright moon that we did over the last couple of days, where northwest winds aloft will continue to funnel in chilly air into the region, and a little bit of snow flurry activity. There'll be some snow flurries across parts of southern Montana, northern Wyoming, western South Dakota again. Few flurries in the mountains of Wyoming and Colorado in a few spots, but generally speaking, just a cold January day across the region. Then we have this little break coming on up, and want to tell folks, if you need to do something outside, if you need to get some travel in, the weather Wednesday, Thursday into the beginnings of Friday look good. Kind of take advantage of that opportunity. Livestock interests take advantage to prepare. The likelihood of this Arctic wave is looking more and more likely. We're darn close to the point of no return, so to speak, in terms of this Arctic outbreak commencing and happening. The confidence is high. So you may want to prepare for what looks to be about a pretty intense 72-hour period of cold before the Arctic air eases a bit. There is going to be snow with this system and the bitter cold. The snow is not going to be deep, but it will be enough to be impactful in many areas. This Arctic wave is going to really hit Montana, Wyoming, and Colorado hardest, but also the Dakotas, Nebraska, and then the cold will get down into Kansas. And as you'll see in a minute, the Arctic wave will go all the way to the Gulf Coast. So be ready for the cold wave. It's coming. Could there be a reload? Could there be a Arctic outbreak part 2 by the following weekend? That's a possibility, and we'll show you that here in a moment. Some good folks shedding some great photos across the region. Frosty mornings and sun going through those high clouds and sun pillars. There you can see a classic sun pillar situation. We've had a lot of those here lately with the turn to snow cover now, the much colder temperatures, and that low-angled sun producing these sun pillars in the mornings especially. The satellite imagery this morning shows another plunge of very cold air into the upper Midwest and headed towards the Great Lakes. You can see it right here. Northwest flow aloft, that's a boundary there of some low clouds and some very cold Arctic air sliding into the region. And the edge of that is what will cause more light snow shower activity and flurries up here. High pressure along the west coast. Notice this swirl right here off the coast of California. Low pressure there, high pressure here, and your Santa Anas, as you're hearing about on the news again today. And there it is, that low off the coast. The northwest flow bringing that next chunk of cold air. This will bring very cold temperatures into the northwest parts of the Great Lakes, the northern plains. This high pressure nosing into the Pacific Northwest. And here's our troublemaker, the instigator, that will transpire here later in the week. We do have advisories for severe cold up here. Lake effect snows in the Great Lakes as that Arctic air comes through. High wind warnings for California. Still very cold down into parts of southern Arizona. We still have winter weather advisories in effect for the Black Hills with some lingering snow showers today. This is what we're going to see through today. This is the flurries, the snow showers in the northern areas that could occur through the course of the day today as this surge of Arctic air gets cycled out of the area and allows that high pressure to build in as we get into Wednesday and Thursday. So Wednesday and Thursday, there's that gap. By Friday morning, we start to see the Arctic wave forming. The Arctic boundary by Friday morning will be across Montana, heading towards northern Wyoming. This is by 5 a.m. Friday. The high pressure ridge is building up into Alaska, and it's building far north. The extent of the cold that gets pushed south is directly related to how much this high pressure ridge builds north. So what you have is basically a big displacement of air masses. This is what goes on in these situations. One air mass displaces the other. And with the high pressure ridge there building in the Gulf of Alaska, that cues up the cold. The cold by Friday morning near the Montana-Wyoming border, and then will rapidly push south by Saturday morning. So by Saturday morning, The Arctic front is pushing into the Denver area and headed south. And as we showed you yesterday, the trajectory of the air at 18,000 feet and also on the surface is coming in from the higher latitudes to the lower latitudes around the counterclockwise circulation of this big low here in Hudson Bay. So the door is wide open, and by Monday morning, this is when the Arctic air reaches its deepest, at least in the Rockies. So Monday morning, it's going to probably end up being the coldest morning over the largest area, with temperatures and wind chills way below zero in many areas. This is just a classic setup. Seen this pattern before. A lot of times you just want to look at the pattern and then look historically at what those patterns have produced before. So this is basically a coast-to-coast Arctic outbreak on Monday. Really going to be hard to escape the effects of this Arctic outbreak. Look how much it covers the U.S. and Canada. This is pretty much a widespread outbreak of cold. So the leading edge starts to affect the region Friday, then Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. The outbreak is that's the mature. That's that 72 hours of the outbreak. So by Saturday morning, these will be our temperatures. A lot of single digits. You're starting to get sub-zero temperatures in a few areas. But by Sunday morning, you can see temperatures. These are the forecasted low temperatures, and just use these as a guide. Don't look at these numbers as the specific targets of what the forecasted low will be, because there's going to be some fresh snow on the ground, and these temperatures could be colder. It could be warmer, but probably they'll be colder. But you can see by Sunday morning, the Arctic air is getting deeper, more widespread. It's kind of getting itself over the continental divide as well. And then by Monday morning, look at these temperature anomalies. So the anomaly of temperatures compared to the 30-year average is more than 40 degrees in some areas. So one of the colder months of the year, if you have a 40-degree deviation off your normal, you're cold. And temperatures look like this Monday morning. I think there's a real likelihood of some minus 30s ending up in some of these locations. And certainly when you look at the wind chill values, dangerously cold wind chill values for North Dakota and Saskatchewan, parts of Montana, parts of Wyoming, South Dakota, even northern areas of Nebraska. Sub-zero temperatures push into northeastern areas of New Mexico. You are looking at these temperatures correctly in Texas by Monday morning. Look at those temperatures in Texas. Guess what happens when it gets this cold in Texas? The wind stops. That'll be a concern. Now, the temperature anomaly by Monday afternoon across the nation looks like this. So really hard to escape the winter weather with this Arctic wave. Temperatures get to freezing all the way to the Gulf Coast and the Florida Panhandle, and I think that might even push a little bit further south and east. This is how the front will go with precipitation. So I want you to see is that along the Arctic boundary, you're going to have some travel concerns. You're going to have a burst of snow and wind. Is this really heavy snow? No. But remember, the amount of snow that can fall, accumulate, is proportional to what the temperatures are. When you get this Arctic wave snowfall, you could have 1/10 to 2/10 of an inch of water, and it could be several inches of snow because the way the snow crystals form in the colder temperatures, and then that snow is easily blown around. So right along this Arctic wave, there'll be a burst of snow, a burst of wind, and plunging temperatures, and that creates very, very hazardous travel. So you can see the north to south extent of the Arctic wave with the precipitation along it. And this is what the snowfall looks like through Monday. So right along and east of the divide, but also along and west of the divide, you're going to see these light to moderate snowfalls come on through. So travel conditions from, let's say, as early as midday Friday in the northern areas through early Monday in the southern areas will be impacted by this Arctic front. This is what it looks like across the nation snowfall-wise through Wednesday. I wanted to show you this map because is it going to snow in Houston? It might. Could snow in Houston. We'll see. Snow and ice with that wave as it comes on down. So we'll watch that. A lot of lake effect snows. The lakes are freezing up, but there's still a lot of open water in some of those areas. Now, as we get to the middle of next week, there's a break. The Arctic wave eases some. High pressure nudges a little bit more inland. And this is basically Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of next week into Friday. But this pattern should look somewhat familiar. We've got the high off the coast. Here's the next instigator. This wave, if this develops like this, could basically cause a reload. Basically cause this area of very cold air in Hudson Bay to reconsolidate and push southwest again. So by next weekend, it could come on in, pull the Arctic air back, but this time bring Pacific moisture. So this is something that has to be watched. Could this happen? Absolutely. Is it a slam dunk? No, it is not. However, the pattern that we have seen evolving here in the month of January into February does support Arctic reloading and pushing it back into the western United States again by the weekend of the 25th. So we just have to keep an eye on it, something that we've got to monitor closely. But first things first, one Arctic wave at a time. Have yourself a good Tuesday. We'll see you tomorrow.